It's unusual that we use the church channel for anything except propagating the Word of God. But so many of you have been asking questions to the pastoral team from within the church about vaccinations, our response to the COVID, sending children to school, usual COVID behavior when we reopen the church. So I thought it's best because these are not really spiritual questions, these are medical questions. And I thought it's better to have a medical professional answer that for us. And a variety of doctors in our church, and we thank God for all of them. But Dr. Emmanuel and I were talking the other day, and I felt in my heart that it would be good if he could answer these questions. Dr. Emmanuel works with the very famed Dr. Devi Shetty and is the CEO of all the hospitals of Dr. Devi Shetty, about 36 medical centers across a variety of countries with about over 3,500 doctors working under his leadership. And Dr. Emmanuel is a very faithful, committed with his family, a wonderful family in the church. And he was gracious enough to give us his time out of his, as you can imagine, a loaded schedule that he has in his secular life. But so join along in this video, which we're going to make it into 2 or 3 parts. Now, welcome to the first interview that I have ever done, and it's with Dr. Emmanuel, and it's the topic COVID. The second set of questions are the third wave and its spread. Question 1. Is a third wave a sure eventuality? How worried we should be about the third wave or the new strains of COVID-19? The 2 sub-questions that you all sent away. Are they likely to spread faster and more dangerous than the second wave? Second one, is it expected to begin soon, or when is it expected to begin? What are the details? What should we know about it?
From whatever we have learned from pandemics in the past, and the way the current pandemic is also happening, there will be multiple waves, definitely. So the second wave, I don't think anybody anticipated it to be so highly transmissible and highly virulent, with so many people getting affected at the same time. But the third wave will happen. But the question is, how can we predict whether it will be as severe as the second wave or more severe, or whether it will be a little muted? That's very difficult to say of that. That is one of the reasons why the government of India and all the people who are in the task force are trying to get as many people vaccinated as possible, so that the number of susceptible or vulnerable people reduces. So then the chances of having a very severe third wave will become much lesser. But also the virus is constantly mutating and becoming virulent. It all depends upon how if there is a new strain which has happened, because the second wave happened with a completely new strain, which was extremely transmissible. If you see the first wave when we saw, it was very common for us to see, few people in the same household did not get the disease, while some got it. But in the second wave, practically everybody got in that household. So it all depends upon if there is a new strain, whether it is going to be as transmissible as the second one, and whether it's going to be so severe like the second one or not. So it all depends upon that, and that is very difficult to predict. But 2 things. One is the rapidity and the coverage of vaccination will make it much less, and also not to forget COVID appropriate behavior in the interim period. So that's very important. But as long as these 2 go hand in hand, and you're able to do that, I think we probably will see a muted strain. But looking at how people are very concerned about their own livelihood, a lot of people have forgotten about COVID appropriate behaviors. So it's anybody's guess as to how things will come about. But what we can do is we can take appropriate measures for ourselves, vaccinate ourselves, and not forget about COVID appropriate behavior. I think if that is done, I think, and I'm sure, like you said, if we do our part, God will take care of the rest of the things, and I'm sure we will be safe and sound during that period.
So you are not even too sure of when it can actually, you really can't put a date on when it's going to peak or when it's going to start or anything like that.
It's difficult to predict exact time and date, but I'm sure we've learned a lot from the way the second wave has happened, and I think people have been following it up much more carefully. And I think a lot of the gene sequencing and all those things has been being studied of the virus itself to know whether it's a new strain or not, and they're tracking all those things to see and predict that. But like we rightly said, that's all part of science to predict and things of what we can do as the common citizen of the country is to protect ourselves through to the two simple things which we have the ability and we need to take care of.
Going to the next question, how safe the children are without taking vaccination, as there are predictions of third wave affecting little ones. Now, this is really like a horror movie playing out in our media, Doctor. You have to help us understand, how can parents or the caretakers prepare in advance? And an additional question with that, I think Dr. Devi Shetty also made some comments on children going to school. So is it safe for kids to go to school during this season? And the question is, without vaccination, is it safe?
So in India, vaccination is authorized for 18 years and above right now. But in the Western world, they've started vaccinating 12 years and above. If you really look at the data from the first two waves, not many kids were actually tested. So we really do not know how many of them had the disease or did not have that. And generally, kids tends to be a little more asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, to be putting it that way. So not many were actually tested. But data shows that 9 to 10% or 9 to 11% of our the overall people who got affected were kids. But only of all the people who got admitted in a hospital for treatment, maybe only 1% or 1 to 3% of them were actually kids in that. So kids, by nature, medically, they have paucity of certain receptors which the virus actually goes and enters into the cell, and it starts expressing itself as the kid becomes older and adolescent. So there is an inherent protection kind of a thing because of the selective nature in which the virus actually attacks and enters into the body. So they are very deficient in the nasal pharynx and the lungs. So in general, but does not mean that children, once they get affected, they will not get the severe illness and things like that. The other reason why, so far, one of the reasons which has been postulated by pediatrician is they have so much of frequent respiratory viral infections during their childhood. They have some kind of cross immunity because of that. And also the kids, most of the kids go through a very rigorous immunization therapies during their entire age up to 14 years. And then there are a lot of viral. This is one of the other reasons which has been postulated that maybe that is giving some kind of cross immunity to that. But overall, it gives them some kind of protection. But third wave, is it going to affect them more? It all depends upon the kind of strain that is going to affect. If the virus mutates in such a way that it's going to be not selectively more affecting them, then we will see that. Maybe we will see a little larger number of children coming in. That might be because the number of vulnerable adults might be actually on the much lower side compared in the first and second wave, because either they've got the disease or they've been vaccinated so far. So even though you might see a larger number of kids might come in, we don't know. It might happen. It might not happen at all. But we need to be taking the appropriate precautions. So the appropriate precautions is to make sure, just like the previous question, if everybody lives in the same household, how can we keep the household safe? I think the adults have to be following all COVID behavior and vaccinating, then you keep the kids also safe. And anyway, their schools are not yet opened. Their ability to go and, not being under the overreaching view of the parents to whether they are following some appropriate behavior or not will not be there in school, once they start playing and other things. But I think kids are very smart nowadays, and I think if you tell them, I think they do follow rules and regulations. I think we need to teach them about COVID appropriate behavior. I think they will follow it to the best of their ability. And I think if somebody has some symptoms, I think it's better to test, make sure that you don't send them or to mingle with other people, other kids. So that's very important.
So would you say it's good for parents to wait until the government gives a clear direction on this?
Yeah, government is already taking a lot of precautions, and they don't want to take any chances. If you've seen the way they've cancelled these school examinations in the exit exams and things like that. So they are playing, they are extremely cautious. So I don't think the government is going to do anything in a very irrational way, unless there is strong evidence to say that they can go ahead and do that. There is a strong advisory task force. Every state government has got their own task force, and there's a national task force made up of experts, subject experts, and made up of, and in this particular cases, there are pediatricians involved in the entire thing. So I'm sure they're giving the right advice, and the government is not doing something without getting the right advice on that. Yes, but this question is not something which is unique only to India. It also happens in the other countries as well. Yeah, in the Western world, one of the countries decided to start schools, and there was a lot of parents have put it on Twitter saying that if the pediatrician sees my kids on a video consultation and not in an in-person consultation, how can you advise us to go to school? So that is something which is there. Wow. But I think, but if the same thing in the Far East, if you look at it, there are functioning schools, and then they've taken all the precautions, and then a lot of schools are on off, and they've taken precautions, and then they've done that. So there is, I think we need to wait for the government to make the decisions, and then we need to do that. But we also have to understand at some point they need to return to school.
Of course.
The timing is the most important. And the impact this is having on their social structures and their social behaviors and other things is very tremendous. But I think the important thing is safety for them. But I think this is also something which has to be kept in mind over a long period of time.
We're going into the third segment of Q&A. Other health-related questions. Other health-related questions. Number one, is it important for all age groups, including children, to wear masks whenever they go out? And what if children are not comfortable wearing masks? So how many days, how long, this question is very interesting, how long it may take for us to finally get rid of the mask?
That's a very difficult question, how long it's going to take. Yes, it is difficult. We are used as medical personnel to wear a mask. We can comfortably wear it for hours and hours, and even for continuous stretches of time without without feeling uncomfortable about it. But I think that also got to do with the type of mask that we wear. We wear the surgical mask, which has got a very good seal and good this one. But I think some of the other type of masks which people generally use may not be that comfortable to this one, and it's got a lot of may not have a good fit on the face, so that is very important for them. So I think when you wear a mask, it's very important that it has to stay in the right place and have a good fit for it to be effective for you, because we've seen that healthcare personnel, even before the vaccines came in, we all worked in hospitals with just wearing masks and taking simple precautions, and none of us were affected with the disease. Very few got affected with the disease. But when you let the guard down in the community, at your homes, and when you start going around, a lot of people got that, So people get fed up and then they invite a lot of people home, and you don't know what is happening. And lighter moments are good, but I think you need to take certain precautions in place for. So mask is good. Children, it's difficult because it is not easy for them to wear masks. But I think a lot of kids now are, I mean, almost all kids are extremely bright. I think if you tell them the reasons, and I'm sure they will follow that. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a reinforcement, and things will be.
How much distance the virus can travel in the wind? How much can it travel? There are reports that virus can travel up to 18 feet. Now, whoever asked this question, you're giving me the jittery feeling. How long does this virus stay alive? So, does it stay alive longer on water? Does it stay alive shorter on the skin or on metallic substance? How long will it stay on plastic substance? So, is there a difference on how long it stays alive depending on the environment? And should we use a mask even at home in case we are not vaccinated?
So the virus spreads by droplet transmission, and there is an element of airborne as well, because they found that people who have never been in close proximity to anyone have also have had this. So they could only explain by airborne. Some experiments have been done to say that it can travel to so many distance and all those kinds of things. But then the bottom line is whether it is droplet or airborne or this one, if you are in an unfamiliar environment, especially in the presence of other people whom you are not sure would have about their, whether they are symptomatic or whether their appropriate behaviors are there or not, you need to be very cautious about yourself and wear a mask, because that will protect you from the spread of the infection. As far as the droplet transmission and then settling down on the environmental, this one either on plastic, water, or whatever it is. People in the first wave said, it can stay on these plastic surfaces for so many days and so many this one. Yes, but the percentage of that surviving for such is so small, it will not really cause this one. That is why, recently all this fogging and all these things have not been given so much of due importance like what it was done in the first initial wave, because all the evidence does not point to that. The most important is if you are in a closed space and if there's a crowded space, you need to be very cautious, because that is when, and especially if you are speaking or even having a meal which is very close in that. So these are the situations where things can be very cautious. So that is why when we took a lot of precautions about the staff eating areas and other things, because that is one area where everybody is very cautious, and then they pull the mask down, and then you have a lighter moment and go and you're talking. So these are some of the areas where you do that. So I think you must have seen behaviors of people when they'll be wearing a mask, but when they have to speak on the phone or when they have to speak to somebody else, they pull the mask down and then they start speaking. Well, actually, they need to maintain this one. So that's very important when we look at it. So, but that's the most important thing. But if you are vaccinated and if you are doing that, a lot of activities in the outdoor especially, it's very safe to, the Center for Disease Control in US has started allowing people not to mask if you're vaccinated in an outdoor kind of a settings. Even certain activities in indoor also, they're saying these kinds of things are allowed. But when you're inviting somebody home, I think if you're not in close proximity and if your houses are well ventilated and if you're sure what it is, then it is fine. But that is one of the things, like you following is a very good example, because you're not sure. You meet so many people every day, and you can't keep monitoring and asking questions about this one. The safest thing is to protect ourselves by just keeping the mask on. So that I think.
I wear the mask every day in church.
Yeah.
The two reasons. One is, of course, to be careful. But the greater reason I do that is because I feel that there may be people who like to observe what I do. And I would like to encourage through my example in a right direction. So that's also something that I'm careful. So this 18 feet and all is not really a concern, right?
You need to maintain in a crowded environment, in an unfamiliar environment, in the presence of people whom you have no idea what is happening. I think it is safe to keep a rough distance and maintain all the COVID appropriate behavior. But if you are asked to go to office and work, and if you know that the other person is also vaccinated, and yes, you need to keep wearing the mask, but then you also know that you are in a better company than somebody whom you have no idea what's happening about. So.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Pastor, for having me here.
It was so nice talking. When will this pandemic end from the medical point of view? Should we believe that this pandemic is really the result of a biochemical war or a world war initiated from China?
A lot of people came at a very late stage, and that is something which went against them, and that is one of the reasons why some of them lost their lives because of that, or had a very crippling kind of illness. In addition to burnout, physical burnout, I think getting to see something like this as affects some of them way beyond you can actually imagine.